Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for coming here today. We're very happy to have all of you here, and we have a beautiful session today with architect Sathya Prakash Varanashi. Now, architect Sathya Prakash is a graduate of SPA Delhi and has over 35 years of professional and academic experience. His interests in conservation and sustainability has also led him to share his views in a TEDx talk that is, I am causing climate change. It's a beautiful TED talk. So, once we are done with this, I would like all of y'all to go and watch this TED talk because it's a beautiful TED talk. But more importantly, architect Satya Prakash is here to talk to you about the mindset that you need to have while you are in 5 years of architecture school. Now, the background to this is there are two reasons why we're doing this. Number one is a lot of parents have reached out to us and students have reached out to us and they have a lot of these apprehensions. All right. So we are listening to you, and we're saying yes, let us know what you need, and we will organize these sets of webinars for you. Also, more importantly, um, this is a problem that architecture schools face, wherein students come in very enthusiastic, but their understanding or expectations are not in line with that of a architecture school. So it's very important that y'all prepare yourselves accordingly and get into that mindset. So before we go further, I would just like to remind you to like this webinar and also subscribe to the DQ Labs channel. If you do have any questions, you could always type it out, and we would like as many questions as possible. For those preparing for the NATA 2020 new pattern, y'all can uh, join in, y'all can go on to DQ Edge and access the questions for the new pattern there and watch our previous webinars just to understand what are PTQs and how you can prepare for PTQs. All right. Um, we also have something called the Inter-School Design Competition or the Design Hackathon 2020, which is for students from class 8 to class 12. I know most of you are past class class 12, but please pass this message on to your juniors, to your cousins, to your brothers and sisters, and see that and your schools, and see that as many students participate in this. All right. Now, without further ado, what I am going to do is welcome Professor Architect Sathya Prakash Varnashi. So, Professor Sathya Prakash, namaste, and very happy to have you here.
ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ ಕನ್ನಡ ಬರೋವರಿಗೆ those who don't know Kannada namaskar.
Yes.
And of course regular hello to everyone.
Okay.
And to begin with, I should actually thank Dion for giving me this chance, and one of his staff, Navita, what's her name? Some name, yeah, I think Navita.
Yes, Navita.
Navita, she called upon me last week sometimes, and that has led to this discussion. Now, why are we doing this discussion? He used the right word, mindset. I think mindset is a beautiful word. I'm also going to switch off the video after a while at my house. I have sometimes problem with the signal bandwidth. Anyway, the screen will be there and you'll be mostly looking at the screen share. So the mindset is something very important. And mindset is a very beautiful word because it synthesizes a whole lot of other things. So mindset. Of course, Dion suggested for 5 years. I don't know whether it's for 5 years, but I think so. So trying to summarize. But then there's also another title here, Beyond Aptitude. is not to comment or criticize NATA. I have been one of the NATA valuers. Back in 2006-7, all the way for about 5 years, I did NATA valuation till around 2011 or 12, I think. And I also did NATA valuation, not NATA, the entrance exams for IIT and all. In those days, it used to be there. I don't know what's happening now. I also did that valuation for 2, 3 years. So, and the schools where one has been teaching, very briefly to tell you, I started my teaching career in School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. Not in architecture, but in masters. But I also was involved in the architecture dissertation guidance and in B planning. And later moved to Bangalore, and I've been a faculty of architecture as visiting in Dayanand Sagar, in BMS, RV. I've also gone out to schools in Chennai, Vellore, VIT, MES, Kuttipuram. So like this, one has been going wherever people call, besides giving talks and interacting with students in fairly good number of maybe some 10, 15, 20 schools of architecture across. So one of the common comment we get to hear is about NATA everywhere. So there is a little myth, sorry to use the word myth, there's a little myth among many people, so among many students to begin with, and the parents. So very often they think that the moment they score well in NATA, they think they should be good students of architecture. And if somebody has scored well in NATA and somebody else hasn't, happens, no? And each other's NATA score after some time. Now I'll switch off okay, I'll keep it for a while till I start the explanation part, my video. So, and students feel very bad. Come on, I got such a good score in NATA and I'm not doing well. The other student has not got so good, but she is doing better. Just this presentation is to help you all to come out of that. So let's not think that NATA score is the visa for success. That's point number one. Second, many students score less in NATA. And they think, oh, we are not suited for architecture. We are unfit for architecture. Sorry, my young friends, you are also fit for architecture. Because the NASA aptitude test only looks at certain aspects only. The formulae for doing well in architecture, both in academics and in profession, they are also there in NATA, but they are far beyond NATA. So if anybody asks me, Satya, do you think I'm fit to study design and architecture? I will immediately say yes to anybody and everybody. I know you'll be surprised. But hear it from me if I'm saying I've been an art evaluation person and entrance exam person for about 7 years between the IIT entrances and the rest of it. So one knows the limitations of NATA. With all my good friends in Council of Architecture, wherever it is, I'm saying it. But NATA entrance is useful, it is needed. It gives us an idea, a part of the idea about where we stand. But there are many areas which NATA does not tell us where we stand. So that's the purpose of sharing these experiences. I'm trying to say that once you have the right kind of mindset and the NATA together would ensure that future can be bright. Some of you might have heard architecture is going through a tough time. Like any other course is going through a tough time, and now the corona is adding to our, it's like rubbing salt to the wound, and everybody is going through it. So let's all see how we can swim through these tough times together. As I said, I've been a visiting faculty for lots of schools of architecture, but in between for 8 years, 1992, so 1983, I can say 93 to 2000, full 8 years. I was the faculty, then became professor, became the head of the architecture department at a school which now is no more, called BIT, Bangalore Institute of Technology. But I still want to thank BIT. It paved my way to be in what I am in academics or whatever I've learned. 8 years I was there. Then I quit it for various reasons. Then for the next 15 years, I continued only as a visiting faculty in multiple institutes. At one time, I used to go to 4 different colleges as visiting faculty, including this KS School of Architecture in Bangalore. I continue to be with KS School of Architecture, and I also visit a couple of other schools whenever they call me. That's the background, and shall we start? As I'm starting, yesterday I made a request to Dion. What is it? I will come online to share with you what I would like to share, but I have no guarantee. What I would like to share is what you want to hear. All that I share may be of no use to you. So it's important that you please ask me right away. We will not wait till the end of the so-called webinar. Couple of the last few ones I have done, I've used another word called webilog. So we dialogue in a webinar. We don't wait till the end of a long, boring lecture to discuss mutually what we are sharing. I also get very bored to discuss for 1 hour without interruptions. So I'd like to really hear from you people. Since I'm sharing full screen, I will not be able to look at the chat box parallelly. So I'm going to request Dion to keep asking me. Once in a while, I'll just show a few slides, I'll stop. And your questions need not be exactly about the few slides I would have shared with you. No need. You can share anything about academics, profession, architecture at large. All right? Feel free. And that's the only way to learn. Ask what you want to know, and then you come to know. Hear what you don't want to know, you will not know anything, right? I think you all know that. So please start asking right away. I'm not even saying you should ask me a question. You can share an experience, you can share a knowledge, you can tell me something that I might not have heard of. I'll also learn from you people. All right, let's start. So, many of these things I'm very sure your school DQ labs would have covered, but I don't know what they have covered. So I may be repeating few things. So Dion, if there is any repetition, you can tell me that Sathya that we already covered. Please feel free. So personally, and incidentally, wherever I have taught, I've been taking the first semester.
Absolutely. We'll
Thanks. Yeah.
keep it.
Yes. So wherever I've taken classes, I've taken first year and final year. These are my two sessions, typically first semester, second semester, and ninth and 10th semester. Urban Design Studio and Thesis Studio. So typically when anybody comes into the first semester, these are some of the standard things I share with them, that there is a major paradigm shift that we should be prepared to. So none of the 12th standard subjects, PCM, let's start with, and maybe biology or statistics or computers or whatever, none of the subjects continue directly into architecture. Some of them continue in a very indirect way, but unlike other courses, like mainly I'm comparing with engineering and medical, there is no continuation. The second line, I'm very, very sure your resource persons at DQ Labs would have told you. And we all face this thing about the parents come and ask, oh, what textbooks to buy for my children? And we tell them there is no textbook to buy. So there's a major shift from a textbook based teaching to a self study based learning. So, what we mean by self study is that we need to be proactive. That whole urge to learn should be from inside. So, the first step to learn should come from within us. So, by self study, these are simple words. Incidentally, if any of the words I'm using are not that you can understand, you should also please ask me. I have run through this PPT with three of my, well, I should say three and a half of my colleagues at, at KS School of Architecture, because we share a lot of common philosophies, our teaching methodologies, there are a lot of common things there. And I said half because one faculty only could see half the slides. Then he had to rush out. And the other three also gave me reaction. And one of the faculty said, Sathya, you are using some of the words which may be a little too high for the 12th standard or the PUC students. So in case if there's anything, please. Now, why is this shift becomes difficult for many students? Very frankly, quite a many students find it very, very difficult, including few who are supposedly good. Because the 12th standard, 11th and 12th combined, is rooted a lot in these rhyming words, tuition. I don't know how many of you have not gone for a tuition class, and I wish not many would have. During my days, of course, I was trained up in a very, very small, remote village in the coastal Karnataka with no way, there's nothing called tuition. I never heard of the word called tuition. So we are all studying in those kind of places. But today tuition is, I mean, it's like a corona of sorts. Every other person in second PUC goes through tuition. Instruction. The parents instructors, the teachers instructors, everywhere there are instructions in the 12th standard. To the extent, if we simply follow the instructions, we can reach our goal post. Third, of course, information. We are flooded with information. But this information is not about large level world policy or what's happening in Somalia or what's happening in America. This information is all again about what we should be doing, and about to do with our second PUC level, and maybe something about what we may do after that. And of course, last part is internet. This may not be something which comes from the parents and the teachers, but something which most of students are immersed in. When I say internet, it could be social media, it could be websites, it could be Netflix films, or whatever else it could be. So what we notice is that we have been groomed in an education system. Let's not go do too deep into it, but most of us have been groomed in an education system which is rooted in tuition, instruction, information, and internet. And do you think these four help architecture? Mostly not. The last one, internet, may to some extent, but in my class, if I am taking first semester, second semester, typically internet is not at all encouraged. To the extent I even say ban it. For none of our assignments in my class, I said don't refer to internet. You know why? Next slide, next line. Because to become a true designer, to become a good architect, to become a good thinker, to be able to think out of a box, we cannot depend on tuitions and instructions and informations and internet. We have to depend on our impulses, instincts, intuitions, and intelligence. All human beings are born with instincts. Every animal has an instinct, especially an instinct of safety, instinct of survival, instinct of immediately coming with a solution, pragmatic, immediate solution to a problem. No animal thinks for half an hour. We think because we have left our animal instincts. And why have we left our animal instincts? God made us like this. But if we can go back to our animal instincts, we can think of anything. It's not only about shelter making, about architecture. It could be about motorbike maintenance. It could be about Zen. Everything. Instinct is very important. Impulse. Design is an animal impulse. Look at an ant. Look at honeybees. Look at birds. Look at dogs. Look at every animal around. Every animal has an impulse. To be a good designer, what we need? If anybody asks me, I'm not against perhaps doing Nata coaching and you taking it. But if anybody asks me, Satya, tell me one way wherein I can go back into becoming a good designer. My answer is simple: go back to your impulses. Rejuvenate that animal impulses we all have in us. Every one of us is a designer. Go back into it. But to go back into it is not very easy because formal education, school education, parental instruction, societal structuring, traditional and cultural as well, restrictions of certain kind, not all. Tradition and culture is great, but some restrictions, they all have taken away our intuition. And you know why I hate tuition? I'm sorry to say it, but I know sometimes tuition may be important. Tuition takes away intuition. Tuition makes us into, steps us into a very robotic learning process. We simply follow what our tutor tells and we simply do it. As long as the tutor is with us, we perform. The moment the tutor is out, we don't know what to do. The best tutor is the tutor who makes himself or herself, after some time of tuitioning, of course, after some time, they should become unavoidable. So even as a teacher, I say it. The day a student tells me, Satya, I no more need you, I'll be very proud. That means the student has learned from me what he or she can learn from me. so I can now be avoided. And that means the student will go on his own or her own. That is the process of learning we should look at. We should empower the students. Self study also comes from that. So let's go back to our intuition. And my young friends, if we can return to and go back into and strengthen our impulses, instincts, intuition, these three, let me assure you, your design intelligence springs up. It just comes. The design thinking just happens if we can look into impulses, instincts, and intuitions. And do you know why I have offered this sharing of experiences to Dion and to DQ Labs? Because NATA cannot test all these. To some extent, it tests. And to some extent, NATA focuses more on aptitude. We need to look at beyond the aptitude. And there are two more words you can read in the last line there: attitude and attributes. It's been a couple of years now, not just, even though I spent about 5 hours in putting together this PPT, because the first time I'm doing it in a very formal way, systematic way. And one should look at every word, every line, every sequence, everything that one puts in a PPT has to be good. There's no point doing a casual job, right? So I spent about 5 hours, let's say. But these 5 hours of PPT has not just come from 5 hours. It has come from maybe 5 years of thinking. But you can question me. People may say, Satya, what you said is not right. Fair enough. So each one has their opinion about all this. So these are important. This is something which I'm pretty sure you would have covered. But before this, Dion, any questions from anybody, please? Anything to share? Dion, can you hear me? Dion, can you hear me? What happened? Dion, can you hear me? Okay, can students hear me? I don't think they'll be able to hear me. Hello? What's happening? Yes. You got disconnected. Oh, because I thought maybe I got disconnected. My signal, there are some problems here as usual. But I'm not sure whether I am continuing because there is, I also got. I'll, all right. Okay, then I'll continue. And once you come back, let me know whether we can take up any questions. Just to break that boring talk. Okay, yeah. All right, I'll be with you. I'll be just joining in a second, in 2 seconds. ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಮನೆಯ ಏರ್ಟೆಲ್ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡದೇ ಇದ್ರೆ ಸಾರಿ ಈ ಸಿಟಿ ಇದನ್ನು ಸ್ಟಾಪ್ ಮಾಡಿಟ್ಟು ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕುತ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ನೀವು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಿ ಹಾಟ್ಸ್ಪಾಟ್ ಇದೆ ಸಾರಿ ಸರ್ ನಾನು ಏರ್ಟೆಲ್ ಹಾಟ್ಸ್ಪಾಟ್ ಇತ್ತು ಐ ನಾಟ್ ಗೆಟಿಂಗ್ ಇಯರ್ ಸಿಗ್ನಲ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಏರ್ಟೆಲ್ ಹಾಟ್ಸ್ಪಾಟ್ ಗಿವಿಂಗ್ ಮಿ ಟ್ರಬಲ್ hello, I'm back. Okay, I believe you all can hear me, but I can't make out much. That's why I was getting a little concerned. Okay, now one was talking about this, which possibly has already been told to you all. Architecture is a multidisciplinary program, multi-layered course. Even though one did say that there is nothing much from the PUC 12th standard which continues into the architecture program, curiously, there is kind of a continuation. There's a lot of physics in it, acoustics, there's climatology, material science, building materials basically. There's maths, of course, structures, and there is a kind of, I won't say directly say, it's accounting, but matters to do with economics and accounting and building valuations and costing and the kind of quotations which contractors give and how do we check it. So we need to have understandings of them, and of course a bit of BA, Bachelor of Arts as well. So we have sociology and economics and management. So in other words, it's a very curious course. Architecture is a very unusual course. No other master's program, or sorry, bachelor program like law or even becoming a chartered accountant or of course medical have this amount of fusion of multiple subjects. Many people tend to think, oh well, architecture is all about art and creativity, imagination and sketching. That's the myth. And this is where one is trying to come in and tell you people that you could be good in your imagination, art, etc. But to do better in architecture, both in academics and in profession, we need to be able to imbibe the other qualities as well. You may not have it right now, but you will imbibe it. And it is the responsibility of the schools, the faculty as well, to ensure you get into all this. And most good schools do them. In DQ labs, you have been exposed to multiple number of schools. So I know that you will be able to do the right choice and decide which school will help you in imbibing it. Dion, are you back here again? No, I'll continue then. I just assume that everybody is listening and everybody is able to see. So I'll just continue. Now, this is a very curious statement. One has been using this since late 90s. So this idea is some 23, 24-year-old idea. You all know the meaning of the word abbreviation, right? So UNO stands for United Nations Organization. So like that, we all know the meaning of an abbreviation. So I started saying that architecture itself is an abbreviation of architecture. How? Each one of these alphabets, A, R, C, H, I, etc., can be expanded. I love to do all this sitting across you people in reality in a live session than doing like this, staring at my laptop screen. And the amount of liveliness which comes in this particular exercise is absolutely missing. Well, that's all I can do. I can do my level best. I'm still trying to smile at my laptop screen. The laptop screen is not giving me back any smile, but I'll just
All right.
continue.
So
Isn't it, dear?
I'm back. I'm back. Sorry
So
about that.
then, okay, this is an interesting session. Before this, can I have any questions if there is any?
Yes, yes. So there are quite a few questions that are here.
Mm.
So one is a question from Rinku Pradhan, who's
Mm.
asking, does one need to be good at drawing to be an architect?
That's one of the most common questions. In a way, yes, and in a way, no. With the kind of software technology that has come in, you should be good in pressing a key button in your laptop. But drawing is important for other reasons, Rinku. Drawing is not merely an act of drawing a line. When we draw a line, the hand, the fingers move in a particular way. The neuromotor mechanism of the body works and impulses come from the brain. Impulses of the brain are created by the way the mind thinks. So, drawing a line, I won't go too deep into it. So, the drawing the line is nothing else but the manifestation, the expression of thinking. So, drawing is important. But drawing well is not very important. You may draw a crooked line, straight line, your sketch could be good, sketch may not be so good. Don't care much about it. As long as the brain can think, rest is taken care of. Next, I'm done, sir. Next.
Yes. One second. Let me just click on this. Okay. So the next question is
Yes,
the next question is from hold on, Rajita Pramod. Okay.
yes,
Everyone has started teaching online. Do you
yes.
think the content in architecture can be limited to an online classes, or do we need more exposure and mainly it's beyond theory?
Rajit, you already have given answer to your question indirectly. Yes, it cannot be only online, it has to go beyond. We are all trying to see how to do that. For that matter, I have also a small consultancy firm, 26-year-old now. We are not into mainstream commercial normal architecture. We are only into ecological alternative architecture all through, right from day one. And we're also now learning how to do it online. We always expected our people, our clients to walk into a building, experience the building, and come back to us. No, we are not able to do that. So we are trying to explain the theory of designing, plan making online. So it's virtually like taking an online class for my clients. 1.5 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours class virtually I take now, and we tell them how a good architecture happens. So there are ways of finding out alternatives and ensure some learning happens, Rajita.
All,
Yes,
all right. Um, so then there's another question from Dhruv Kotian. Okay. Is it
yes.
good choosing architecture as a main career even after this pandemic due to the economy crisis and how it will affect the field of architecture?
Dhruv, your question can be asked to any other profession. It can be asked to manufacturing, mining, medical, every other profession. We really don't know the what are the career opportunities post corona at the moment. Really, we don't know which. I mean, there are people who are trying to come with prophecies and astrological kind of predictions. We don't know, at least I don't know at the moment, which profession will flourish and which profession will suffer in the post pandemic time. I have some ideas, but it's too uncooked to share at the moment.
All right. So I think probably if I could just give a little more on that. I mean, I've been reading up about these pandemics recently, historically. And I
Yes,
think the world goes through these phases of ups and downs,
true.
and the world recovers from it. These are all temporary phases and the world recovers. So I really think that if someone is interested in something, they should really pursue that, irrespective of what's happening in the short term.
I
you
think
know
you said it in the right words, correct. Just follow the passion. Go ahead, Dhruv.
all right. So Gaurav is asking, so in this fast-paced world where everyone is surrounded with technology, I want to know if this design profession could survive. Wouldn't people depend more on technology to design their spaces?
See, technology dependence, of course, has been happening at unprecedented rate also because of corona. Incidentally, at my age compared to yours, I am an anti-technology man, and I have for the last about 20 odd years, one has been following the curve of ecological disaster on the earth. Last 10 years, it more critically. Last 5 years, even more critically. So I belong to that school of thought, which says that we as a human race are on our way for maybe some kind of a mass or species extinction. We can avert it. I'm not saying we will, but I'm confident we can avert it. But we are depending too much on technology. And even Einstein has said, the what has created the problem cannot create the solution, is my word. Thought is his. So there's a lot of problems in depending on technology, and even architecture profession also will morph. Yes, USA has already gone through it much more than us. In America, an individual architect practicing designing houses and doing interiors, like in India, is very difficult, because people simply depend on the information available on the internet. They simply, there will be a catalog with a number, and you simply order and you get your house plan, you get your interiors. Well, but that will not happen to India right away. We are at least a decade or two ahead. I mean, be behind them in that, or I would say we are ahead in making humane architecture here. So I don't think you should worry too much about it right now, and time will take its course. Yes.
All right.
But
Fantastic.
what, Gaurav, if you can learn not to be dependent on technology, you'll do better. Tomorrow, if you can sketch well, connecting your question to the earlier question, and let's imagine technology fails somewhere. We are not able to do three-dimensional images or animations or walkthroughs, etc., on the computer. And if you have no other skill set, we are finished. But if we can sketch well, we can still convince our clients. So don't depend on technology too much. Depend on our body, mind, heart. That's my suggestion. Okay,
All
you
right.
can. Shall I carry on then?
Yeah, there are a few more questions.
Okay, let's just take one or two more. Then I'll
Yeah.
start with. I don't have too many slides really, Dion.
All right. All right. No
Or I'll
worries.
do one thing. I'll just finish this one set.
Sure, sure,
Yeah.
sure. Then we'll
So
go
this is
ahead.
a kind of abbreviation we set, and for every alphabet, typically, if I were to show to students of architecture, I'll put a nice colorful slide to show aesthetics or art or something like that. And most often, I would be asking them only to add to this list what all are the words in English which starts with A, which is a part and parcel of architecture as academics and profession. Of course, an approved plan, sanctioned plan may not be in academics, it is in profession. Or administration may not much come into the scene in academics and curriculum. But once we become part of an office, a firm, whether we are employees there or with our own firm, administration becomes an issue. So we got to be also good administrators. So in other words, under I won't read out all this anyway. All this will be there on the YouTube for you to follow up, and later on you can see it. But you will be surprised to see the number of alphabets, number of words which can be written down for every one of these alphabets, and one will know how large architecture as a profession is. Of course, it is there even in other professions. So basically, I would say A for aesthetics, R for region, and of course, resources, recycling, not going to the school and coming back in the cycle. No, not that kind of a recycling. Recycling as sustainability measures. So C for culture, and of course codes, building code. Code means building codes, regulations, master plans, setbacks, height rules. You'll also be studying them in your course, and you maybe some of you know, maybe knowing. I don't know really. I have no idea what the NATA coaching centers do. What do they teach to the students? I have zero idea. But I just thought of putting it. CDP means comprehensive development plan. That is a master plan. Now, C is a very interesting word because it also has creativity and context there. And there are some of the alphabets repeat, as you know, R again comes, C again comes. So I put different words there not to repeat. H, of course, history, and most of you do know, I'm sure, history of architecture is a subject in architecture. Human resource, one of the most important aspect. I for ideas, imagination, identity. What is identity of Indian architecture? A commonly asked question. T for time, theory of architecture. Very important. There is a whole amount of biome there. Flora, fauna, I just add one word tree because it's the only word which came matching with the alphabet T. Texts. By texts, one does not mean textbook alone. Yes, in a way, textbooks. Once you all join architecture, you will hear the word text as a much more layered meaning. Text means something beyond merely a textbook, right? You will one day learn about it. Texts. So E for ecology, enclosure, estimation. A while ago, one spoke about how BA become BSc in its own subtle shade is part of program. So, for example, estimation can be taken under accounts. C for cost. Cost also can come under accounts, of course. So C for cost, climate, construction, conservation, consultancy. T for technology, town planning, tradition. U for utility, users. Utopia, vision. Very often we notice new architecture comes from a great vision from some great master architect. And of course, the alphabet R repeats again. So one has ensured the same words don't repeat here. and he again repeats, and as you can see, there are different words. Some of these words, for example, when one says experience, is a very, very, very deep word. Experiencing architecture is the way to become a master architect one day. But then right away, I won't go deep into it. Your journey will take you. One day, all of you will know how to experience architecture. There are also some words which are not part of this abbreviation list. Now, simply because this alphabet was not there. There is no S or no P in architecture. So I've just put them in different words here. I will not read them in detail, but there are a few which again I want to pick up. Symbolism. That's the last word there in the list. Symbolism is very deep. You know why I picked up on the words like experience or here symbolism or memories, philosophies? Too often, NATA is not able to test these. Whereas we notice that when an architect becomes a good architect, they typically are thinking architects. They can analyze and theorize and philosophize, and their architecture becomes deep, and a lot of people tend to appreciate their architecture. NATA may not test that. So in NATA, you may not score well. But imagine if you're good in analyzing, theorizing, philosophizing, in understanding the image and meaning and symbolism. Don't worry much about the deeper meaning of the words. I'm just, maybe Dion and others might have used the word. I'm also just touching upon the word. Let me tell you what I went through. During my architecture course, I was told to be a very, very below average student. I failed. Somehow I managed to pass. Didn't know what to do in my life. Applied for masters. I got in. In those days, there were only three schools of architecture in India offering any masters. Surprisingly, two of them I got in. My friends were trying to go abroad, writing GATE and TOEFL. I didn't even dream of doing it. Surprisingly, I got in both the schools of architecture in India in those days for masters, and I chose SPA Delhi, and I did not go to CEPT CEPT Ahmedabad. SPA Delhi also was doing very badly, and I failed in my. I nowadays I very openly say it. I failed in my thesis in master's degree. Somehow again managed to pass. And year and a half down the line, someone said, Satya, do you want to go abroad? I want to send you for higher studies abroad. And I said, sorry, I don't fit into it. They said, no, you fit into it. Went abroad, did my master's, second master's, came back. You know why all this happened? Very often we don't know what is that which is in us, which will make us fit. So the criteria for joining architecture, selecting the school of architecture is very difficult, of course. We may have capabilities inside us which we don't realize, and the market will not recognize it. I'll come to this list after a while. Dion, over to you. Some more questions, please.
Right, sir. I think that is very, very inspirational to hear that from you. Um, Sunishta Devi is asking if advanced mathematics is used in the course.
It is not used as advanced maths, but it is used as an application. So we need to have, to some extent, a mathematical mind. And you may be knowing, math has been the very, very first extension, or among the first few extensions of the human brain, when Homo sapiens, who evolved around 200,000 years ago, when they evolved into an intelligent animal on this earth. Math was one of the first, among the first. Math also means there is a capability in us for abstraction. For example, when we say 1 plus 1 is 2, there's nothing like 1 plus 1 is 2 anywhere in the nature. So 200,000 years ago, when Homo sapiens evolved, how would they look at 1 plus 1 as 2? They did not write, they could not speak. But the idea of 1 and 1 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 evolved in the brain in those days. Is not what I'm saying this. Scientists have said this. I'm only quoting unknown scientists who have said this, which I have read. So all of us have that basic mathematical skills. So Sudesh, I can only tell you whatever mathematical skill you have is good enough for architecture. Go on,
Okay.
Dion.
All right. So Veena M is saying, what are the general subjects that are going to be in the first year of architecture?
Well, I don't think we should spend much time on that here. Dion, maybe you can answer it. You can share the syllabus curriculum.
Yeah.
It's available online.
Right, right, right. So
The
Veena,
You
I
know, I
think,
can only tell you this. There is one subject which is not written in the curriculum. I keep saying the word again and again. Even this PPT after some time will end with that word, thinking. There is no subject called thinking course. If any of you have not heard of Edward de Bono, this is one of the very basic step, entry level thinking course you can take. Any books by Edward de Bono you can read. It's very simple, very basic. There are more advanced theoreticians, more advanced people who will tell you how to think, including Dr. Ramchandran, the very, very, very famous Indian, but American later, brain scientist. And there's a very interesting essay by him called The Artful Mind, ARTFUL, FULL, Artful Mind. So if you want to know about the creativity in your mind and what kind of scientific application are there, you can look into Artful Mind by Dr. Ramchandran. But otherwise, go through some thinking courses, which is missing in the first year architecture. So what I do, so what we do in our first year architecture, very much in the first semester, second semester, I've been doing it, right? I've done it in Dayanand Sagar, I've done it in BIT, I'm now doing it in KSSA, everywhere, wherever I go, I do it. And I also take up master's programs, like in Kerala I do, and in RV I do master's program. Even there, first semester, there's substantial time given for thinking. Over to you, Dion.
Yes, sir. Right. So there's a question from Pranav who says, at what point in the course of architecture do they need to start transitioning from designing by hand onto a laptop or a PC using technology? Does it start from the beginning or does it come at a later stage?
Now, I wish you were in front of me. So there is nothing. I know you are not yet a student of architecture. There's nothing like a shift. Designing is ever present. If you were to own a motorbike or a cycle or a scooter, you can say, or even a car in your family, you can say, now I'm starting the car. Now I'm shifting from first gear to second gear. In designing, there is neither starting nor shifting. Is there always. Someday you will understand what I'm saying. All best.
That is a very good answer. What I've seen with the students of design and architects is that they're always very curious. Whether the
Yes,
skill is taught to them or not, they just start playing around and figuring things out by
yes,
themselves, irrespective of what is
I know.
required. Yeah,
All right. Let me then go through this particular slide and then we'll go to the next set of
sure,
questions.
sure.
All right, my young friends, when somebody tells you what are the criteria for joining a school of architecture or becoming an architect, choosing a career, let's say architecture or medical or engineering or law or whatever else. Nowadays, there are many NIFT and whatnot. I'm not particular about any school of architecture because I teach in multiple schools of architecture. So, but these are the known criterias. What I've written down here. Very often people say, oh, let's go with the NASEPT Ahmedabad, SPA Delhi, because they are famous schools. All right, I agree. But so-called less famous schools often do great work. And good students pass out of so-called less known schools, and average students also pass out from the so-called best schools. City location. To some extent, yes. A school in a city is better. That is, if it is giving you good exposure. There should be good faculty, good number of events, good number of exposure, good number of opportunities to learn and be on your own, etc., etc. But there's no guarantee that every city location will give you the best. Even a small town location often gives it as well. Then there are this Council of Architecture recognition and all, which is okay. They are mandatory. Language proficiency, people say, and this is one thing on and off. If any of you speak Hindi or Kannada or Tamil or Malayalam, whatever as mother tongue, if you're not good in English, my young friends, language proficiency is not a good criteria, great criteria to be a good student of architecture. And I've also been one of the first set of advisory committee members for awards in excellence in thesis. It is the Council of Architecture annual award scheme. And when this award scheme got constituted some 10, 12 years ago, in the very first round, I was the South region, all over from India, we were regional. So I was from South India, North India, East India. We were 5 of us, 6 of us, advisory committee formed. and you are developing the criteria on what basis we should give awards for thesis. And I can tell you, even in the final year, final thesis, national level award winning schemes, we have given them award where people could not speak English, people who were stammering, whose grammatical constructions were wrong. Forget language proficiency as a criteria. Of course, is needed to communicate to clients. Gender, there's another big misnomer. For some reason, people think girls are better suited. Yes, of course, right brain, left brain, it is there. But there is nothing like girls are better suited and boys are not better suited. Aptitude test, well, I have already said it has its own role, but that's not the only role. Affordability is, yes, a major criteria. If your parents can't pay the fees for a particular college, well, that's a criteria. But what are the lesser known criteria, which is, in my opinion, more important? A lot of people look at being academically good, being worldly wise. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಲೋಕಜ್ಞಾನ ಅಂತೇವೆ ನಾವು. Dayan, you can understand that. ಲೋಕಜ್ಞಾನ.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know what to say in Hindi. So, worldly wise. Being worldly wise is very important. Unfortunately, many of you at your age group might not have got enough exposure to be worldly wise. So please pick it up right from the day one when you get into architecture. And over the time, you learn why it is. Being proactive, 11th and 12th, most often, even if you're reactive, listen to the teachers, say what do they do. So the action starts from the parents and from the teachers, and the students, we react to what our parents and teachers tell us. Well, architecture, if you're proactive, you get more recognized, both in academics as in profession later on. Well, here is a very, very big myth I'm going to talk about, being creative versus being communicative. However much one is creative, if one cannot communicate it, one may not be able to, one may not get fully recognized. And what do we mean by being communicative? Of course, language is one of them, no doubt. Communication is not just language, it is language, it's body behavior, it's sketching, it's graphics, it's even sometimes not speaking much. It may be giving enough pause between the talk. Say one line, pause for a while, let the clients understand, then say the next line. Even that. Give your reasoning, let the teacher listen to you for a while, keep quiet, let the teacher understand, and then go into the next point. Any means of being communicative. Another important word, common sense. Now you can ask me, Sathya, how can you say that critical thinking, creativity, academics are not good enough? They are good, but they are not good enough. There's a difference between being good versus being good enough. That what it lacks is compensated by the other words, being worldly wise, proactive, communicative, common sense. And of course, the last word is experience. Experience not merely as a practicing architect, don't go to that big levels, but the overall experience in life. It also, one can connect it to being worldly wise and all. And of course, general exposure. One of the major problem, Dion, you are listening, what we face is when students come into architecture, in the first year, not only first semester, first year, and sometimes even second year, we find it very difficult to teach and them learn. I'm not saying there's a division between teaching and learning. I belong to J. Krishnamurti and many others, Ramana Maharshi, many others, philosophical school. Teaching and learning are same, but I won't go into that now. But in the physical world, if you say teaching and learning, one of the major area where we find it difficult to teach and they learn is because many students lack the general exposure. They lack that experience. They lack that being worldly wise. So the earlier you pick it up as student, the better you do. I'll just go to this word aptitude and then stop for the next round of questions because these are known. So artistic instincts, connecting to a subject, capacity to work hard. Everybody have told you, you got to work hard in architecture, spend sleepless nights. And of course, designing is an aptitude, drawing is an aptitude, graphic skill, general interest, inclination, passion, of course, understood. Imagining, being able to imagine, being able to observe, and sketching, all these words we have already heard. And some of them come from also visualizing. So now, Dion, I'll just stop at the next top of the slide. I'll gulp little water, and
All
you can
right.
ask me the next question.
Sure.
Yes.
Right. So there's a couple of I think there's a lot of appreciation for your own personal story. So Dhruv
Yeah.
Kotian is asking, it would be a pleasure if we get to know about your college days and what has made you such a great inspiration. Do you have one good memory or few good memories if you can talk about in your journey?
I think Dhruv, you'll have to ask Dion to organize another DQ lab session like this. It will take time. So, well, everyone, see, one thing, let me tell you, every human being goes through their own sets of apprehensions and fears and inferiority complexes and comparisons and whatnot. I've also gone through. What really pulled me up is I got some very good mentor architects like Shankar Kanade during my architecture. During my first masters, it was KT Ravindran and AGK Menon. And back in Bangalore, it's people like Jaisim. And there has been some philosophical paths one followed, Jiddu Krishnamurti, Mahatma Gandhi, Laurie Baker. So I assume there are these people who mentor you directly or indirectly. I'm just leaving you at that kind of a very vague answer, not talking of any one direct experience. And but do remember this, whoever you may be idolizing, it could be the Prime Minister of the country, it could be Amitabh Bachchan, or it could be some other big hero, heroine around, it could be Sachin Tendulkar, or it could be Dhoni. Everybody is a human being in flesh and blood and bone. Everybody goes through what you're going through. When I was young, I was worried, will I ever be able to earn my life? I was worried, will I ever be able to run a profession? Today I am. So one day you also will. Go ahead, Dion. That's all I can say to Dhruv at the moment.
Right. So Kashvi is asking, most of the topics covered in architecture overlap with topics in design. Is there anything very unique in architecture that you find interesting? So topic wise between architecture and design, is there any difference? Are you aware of any such difference between the?
Fundamentally, there is no difference. Maybe the way people are defining it at the last end, maybe. But fundamentally, there is no difference. See, end of the day, design is not, what is design if you look at it? It's very difficult to define design. People have defined. It's not that people have not defined, but typically it's difficult to, I mean, I also can define, but that's not the purpose here at the moment. So when we say architecture, architecture is also something difficult to define. But if we say architecture is a building, let's say, if we can see architecture in a building, we can say that there is application of design in a building. We can say the manifestation of design is in a building. The expression of design is in a building. We can go on saying like that. But just, as we said in the beginning, my answer to you, Kashi, I think your name is Kashi. So it's
Ashwini?
something what one said initially only is back into impulses, moods, and intuitions and other things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a interesting answer and an interesting question from Kashvi as well. If I could add a little more to this,
Yeah, go
from
ahead.
the little perspective that I have, um, what we I've been seeing with the students I've interacted with, students of architecture are also working in design. They're also working on interiors. They're also working on probably logos.
Yes.
And students are like Umesh, for example. Umesh is the founder of DQ Labs. He's an architect,
Mm.
branched out into transportation design, and was designing cars for Jaguar Land Rover. You know, so I
Mm.
think architects do get a fantastic exposure, and with any of these careers, whether it's architecture or design, they're very flexible or very fluid, where they can work from one area to the other. You know,
Yes. Yes.
and also if I look at Umesh as a person now, he's designing learning. How learning should be designed. Those
Yes.
That's what he's done, and he's won awards on it. So I think that fluidity comes with any creative course, and whether it's architecture, whether it's design, whether it's fashion, any of these creative courses give that
Yeah.
fluidity.
So design is, in a way, you're right. Design is an extremely large umbrella, John.
Yep.
Very, very large umbrella. All right. Hey, how are we doing with time? I'm a little worried about
We
it.
have hit our time limit. But that's okay. We can address all the
Yes.
questions, and
Yeah.
addressing the questions is more
Okay.
important.
Any one or two interesting one, then I'll go to this list of attitudes.
So I think we can go to the list of attitudes.
Yes.
There's one
So
last question from Rinku, but I think that's been covered earlier. So we'll go to the attitudes and then we'll
yes.
come back to this.
And my young friends, those who are listening, if you can pose questions, please do pose. You know what I'm enjoying most at the moment? I'm not enjoying my PPT as much as I'm enjoying what you're asking. Because see, my PPT is already there, prepared. I know what I'm going to say. But when you people ask me something, I have to think. So questions make me think, and that is what one is enjoying. So please make me think. Please ask me something. Please share your ideas. Okay, now back to attitudes. Now all of us know what does attitude mean. So I will not go deep into. I need not tell you what attitude is. The being accommodative versus being aggressive, being adjustable or being argumentative. I've tried to put these two as if they're binaries. So being bold or timid. I know, go back into your own cousins and your uncles and relatives and neighbors and classmates. I am pretty sure each one of you can, in your own limited exposure in life, make a list. Oh, she is very bold. This guy is very timid. My uncle is very argumentative. Oh, you know what? My nani, my grandmother, my ajji, she is 80 plus, but you should see how aggressive she is, etc. Isn't it? Confident, apprehensive, cooperative. Now, you may ask me, I'm just clicking all these words. So, you may ask me, but Satya, isn't it important in every field, whether in a medical or in lawyer field or whatever? In a way, yes, but in a way, no. To be a math, because there was a question on maths, I'm just picking on maths. If somebody is a mathematician and if they're very, very good mathematicians and they're working in IASC or some institute, the amount of public interaction they do, the amount of clients or people handling and going through imperatives of profession is so limited. Whether they are extroverts or introverts may not matter. Whether they are friendly or reserved may not matter. Maybe I'm wrong. Huh? Maybe a mathematician would come and tell me, no, 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 Satya, it matters to me also, whether I'm friendly or reserved. But well, let's take it for argumentation's sake. So many of these people, whether they're friendly or reserved, look at a typical doctor. We walk into a typical doctor, they are there with us for a few minutes. I have walked into clinics where the doctors were friendly as well as the doctors were reserved. But it did not make much difference because they don't sit with you and have a cup of tea and chat with you for the next half an hour. 5 minutes, you are out. That's it. Whereas an architect is very, very important. My friends, if any of you, please make a note of this page. You can add more words. I have just come up with my words. You can, take a take. You can take a print of the screen or go back to the YouTube later. Add your words. Think. Where do we stand? I'm not making a very judgmental thing to say, but I can say that the first part of the word helps us to be worldly wise, have more common sense, be able to deal along with people, manage our profession and academics better. Second part of the words are also useful, being opinionated or being competitive, being temperamental. They have their own advantages, but it can sometimes be a roadblock. So being very reserved, being an introvert, being very competitive. Being competitive is not always a path to success. Please don't take it that way. Being competitive can also be very subversive sometimes. So we got to be very careful about these attitudes. Being aggressive has its importance, but being accommodative has its advantages. So look at them very clearly. There's another big title I'm coming up with called attributes, which is even more deeper than what one is talking about. There's a very subtle difference between attitudes and attributes. Let's not discuss that too deeply now. You can take whatever I have put in as word for its face value. Some of these words and attribute can go to attitude or attitude can to attributes. But as a person, are we approachable? And if you are approachable, will someone come to us and are we very attentive to them or not? Even as a student of architecture, when you're looking at 40 faces in the class, some very face itself makes us think that student is approachable, this student is attentive. And you know what we teachers do? We tend to look at their face more than the other faces. And you would have seen it happening in your own PUC classes. The teachers tend to look at some students' face more than the other students' face. Please don't blame the teacher. It's a part of the human behavior. It's a part of what we are made up with. And when there are extracurricular activities, you know whom we call? We call upon those who seem to be attentive, those who seem to be approachable, those who seem to be expressive. So all these are part of attributes which will, oh, sorry. Hey, Dion, I should have added DQ here.
That's true. That's true.
Now, EQ and IQ. How did I forget DQ?
Of
My,
course.
my apologies. Maybe next time when I do this kind of things, I'll add DQ.
Please
So,
do.
all of you students know the meaning of EQ and IQ, and listening deeply, of course, again, part of attentiveness, managerial traits. See, tenacity, very, very important. Patience, very important. How far we can hold on when things are going tough, very important. And most of these attributes cannot be tested by NATA. That's why sometimes when we get students with higher NATA score not doing well in academics, is not because they are not good students. Don't take it that way. They have not looked at the other attributes required to be a good student of architecture. In 11th and 12th, there is no choice for these kind of evaluations. Even aptitude for that matter, to some extent, okay. To some extent, the aptitude as a criteria may be there. I may say I'm suited for science, or somebody may say I'm suited for commerce. But typically after 10th, we all get into 11th and 12th. There's no choice. But so in virtue, in other words, PUC is not a choice. Okay? But architecture is a choice. There's a difference between the two. Think it over. I'll also touch upon skill sets. Then we'll go to the next last thing, 2 3 slides left now. So this is another big list we have been working on. I've been personally working on the skill sets for the last couple of years now. I mean, more or less arrived, but there's still many more things to do. In Kerala, where I go to teach masters in sustainability program, I've been in MES college. So we make our students every semester. I make them list out the skill sets, their own skill sets, and I ask them to tick whether what was the skill set in the beginning of the semester and the end of semester, have they improved or not. So some of these words, it's all put in alphabetic order. You can add more. Some of them may not be important in some places. For example, a typical marketing, as typical students or masters there need not look at marketing as a skill set, but interviewing is important for them. I give them assignments on interviewing them. Critiquing is important in master's program. So there are lots of skill sets you can look at. You can add your own, maybe more. Now, this is not really something to look at now in the NATA preparation time. These are general in life. You may say that many of them are reading, writing, speaking, should be everywhere. And there are many which people don't look at in architecture: sports, singing, acting, theater, films. And a lot of people don't talk about them. But I can tell you, if you're good in music and dance and acting and films and theater, there is a 10% possibility that you'll be better in architecture. You know why? It's going back to what Dion spoke about, Umesh. Because somewhere the mind has a creative pursuit. The mind can think and design. And that designing mind, thinking mind, expresses itself in multiple modes of creative pursuits. Architecture is like music, music is like dance, dance is like theater. They're all expressions of a creative mind. And you know what happens in architecture? The moment you join the course, the syllabus is so heavy, many of them are not even looked at. NATA does not ask any question, are you good in theater? For that matter, if you're good in theater, some of your friends and relatives may say, hey, if you're good in theater, you know where you should go? Go to Delhi, National School of Drama. If you're good in acting, you know where you should go? You should go to Pune, National Film Institute. Come on here. Why not architecture? And combine them together, synthesize them together. Okay, some more questions. This is, I think, the last but one slide, I think.
All right. I think you answered a few of these questions, which is from Dhruv, which is according to you, which quality of a student can lead him or her to a good architect? I think you just answered that.
Okay.
All right. And Rinku Pradhan has asked, does a good college matter? So that
Ah,
also you have answered, but if you want to
I would,
take that up
you know,
again.
this good is a good is a very interesting word. And recently in some another webinar, somebody asked me, so how do you ensure, how do you ensure it's a good house? And so one, it somehow came out impulsively the answer. So I'm just now repeating the same answer. So I said, whichever house you walk into and you feel good there, that's a good house. So that feel good factor is a certification for a good house. And then architect should ensure that people should feel good there, isn't it? So it's also same kind of an answer I would give. I think this idea of the good school, for example, wherever I have taught, I will not say any particular school as good or bad. I would only say that in every school there are good students. In every school there's something good about it, and in every school where I have been, I have tried to make the school better. Whether it was at RV when I went to teach urban design, I don't take architecture there. I took architecture for about 2 years. Then 3 4 years I was in the master's program. Now they call me for some jury or crit. Because now I have become full time in KS School of Architecture, but I have some liberty there. So Jagannathan says, Satya, you can go to any school you want because you are for academics. He says, you are not limiting yourself to any one school. Go to any school. But end of the day, Dion, sorry, whoever has asked the question is important. If you are good in your school, you can learn in your school. That's a kind of a byline I would give on that question. Good. And
Very
what do you
well.
mean by saying you are good? By saying if you are good in a school, it simply means be good in learning and all those other traits which one spoke about. And if one is not good enough in that, sorry, if one is not good in the basics of the learning and attitudes, attributes, etc., etc., no school will be good enough for you. I have heard people cribbing about Sept Ahmedabad. I've heard people, questioning and cribbing about, complaining about SP at Delhi. I've heard people complaining about some of the so-called best schools. So what does it mean? It means the student is not able to get the best out of the school. They're only complaining about it. So walk into any school where you get the admission, be good there, you'll learn.
Fantastic. So I think you can go on to the next
Okay.
slide.
So this I think is the last one. Looks like I said last but one, maybe last but one. I don't
Okay.
remember now. So what is the difference between architecture and other programs like medical or law or many of them or maths or physics or whatever it is? One, Dion might have covered it for you. Architecture is what we call as a program which is based on breadth of knowledge and not only depth of knowledge. In case if they have not covered, I'll tell you this. To be a good mathematician, one can go into the maths, into the maths, deep, 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 and one will be a fantastic mathematician one day. And one day, somebody will make a film on you called The Beautiful Mind. If any of you have not seen the film called The Beautiful Mind, please see it as an architecture student. It will teach us architecture. But architecture cannot be mastered only by going into architecture alone. We have to get into whole lot of things from politics to sports to reserve bank to international policies to sociology to, we have already gone through those words earlier. Everything we should know. We should read the newspaper. We should be knowing what's happening around us. We should be able to talk to any client on any subject of his or her, and there's a better bonding between them and them. One of the big myth about architecture, once you are in second year, third year, fourth year level, many people think, wow, now we know architecture. Sorry, architecture is a very strange animal. It seems to be very easy to learn the basics of it, but it takes decades to understand and master it. It's an extremely one of the major problem area of architecture is be aware of it. Extremely subjective. What you think is good, your faculty may not think is good. So it's is one of the worst. in that. Even the food, 10 people on the table may say, yeah, it's good food, good food, good food. But 10 people who look at a building may not say it's a good building. They may not concur on that. Process being more important than the building type. Process means how do we design? I won't go too deep into it. You learn it once you come into the program, and there'll be lots and lots and lots of critiques on our design. Have the tenacity, have the patience, take it in, because every person thinks they can design. You know, the only one profession where every human being knows about it right from the day of the birth to the date of the death is architecture. Maybe sound, if not music. Everyone is born into architecture and everyone dies into architecture, because both birth and death happens inside a building for us. So everybody thinks they know architecture. Everybody thinks. A while ago, I said architecture is very easy to learn the basics, but it takes decades to master it. There are no child prodigies in architecture. You can have an amazing car race, chess player, tennis player, musician, actor, politician. I can go cook. I can go on with the list. At a young age, some of the best architects and their best architecture, if you see, majority have come after they were 50-year-old. There are exceptions, I'm not saying, but there are no child prodigies. So you have to have, all of us have to have amazing amount of patience to hold on, and then only it becomes important. And what we design is in our mind, our concept. So we all tend to be very proud of the concept, but my friends, what is important is more than the concept, the perception. How people perceive our architecture is important. There are lots and lots of limitations in a school of architecture. I'm not going into it. The schools of architecture teach us a lot. They are the foundation. This is very, very important. But there are limitations, like, we cannot let students design hundreds of building types in the time we have. We can only make them design 10, 25. And two last important lines: architecture is a profession. A lot of architects are very egoist. They only think about themselves and they don't connect to people well. For me, I'm influenced by architects like Carnades and Laurie Bakers, many others. Architecture is a profession for people. It is not for our ego. But of course, we should be egoist. Of course, we should design well, but we should design for people. And it's one of the profession, one among the few professions which demands a lot of thinking. I think that was the last one. Yes. So that's a profession which demands a lot of thinking. And the one reason why I think I am suited for architecture, I've realized it many years after I studied, is because I can think. Hence, I'm a fit person for architecture, and I know that all of you can think. Somebody may think deep, somebody may think shallow. That's okay, but we all can think, think, think. That's important. We'll take some more questions if there is time before the last line, because it's something I've been talking about for a long time. In this era of corona, we are forgetting climate change. Climate change is far more serious problem than corona. And the only way, corona will have some maybe antidote, maybe one day we'll have a solution, medicine for corona. Climate change, the only medicine is ourselves. At your age, I should not be preaching, but I'm just sharing my knowledge. This has been going on for the last 50, 60 years now. Unless we human beings learn how to live with nature, unless we know how to buy less, throw less, don't waste resources, learn with lesser energy consumption, and many more of this, the future is going to be bleak. And if the future is going to be bleak, architecture is also going to be bleak. So if you want to have a bright future for architecture, which means a bright future for architects, which means a bright future for you and me, we should see how to live with nature with low carbon footprint and low climate change. Go into the internet, there are millions of ideas how to lead a more eco-friendly life, and learn from it and be more eco-friendly. Save the profession for you and me and all of us. That's the end of the formal discussion, Dion, but questions welcome if there is time.
Right. So I think it's been a fantastic presentation. I don't see too many questions coming in yet, but if you can go up a few slides where you talk about exposure.
Is it this one?
Um, Hold on.
If you look into YouTube, you will know
No,
which
no,
page.
no. The the previous slide, the previous one.
Attributes,
No, previous one.
attitudes.
Yeah,
Exposure is a word, I
prior to
think.
this.
There's a word called exposure, I think, in one of the earlier ones.
Yes. Where
This
you
one,
said
experience, etc. Or even, no.
yes. I think the previous one. Previous, prior to this. Oh, this
So,
is the first few slides, right?
oh, then I could have gone into a paradigm
Yeah,
shift. This is where it started,
yeah.
actually.
No,
One
okay.
sec, one
Go
sec. I'll
ahead.
just
Go ahead.
hold on. One sec. Sorry, in case if any of you want to write to me about any more issues you want to ask. I'm not very good in email. I take long time, but if there is anything provocative or urgent, I do. So occasionally people do, and some of them that I want responded. You can write to my college email ID or to my personal email ID. Both are fine with me. There's a last line there: TEDx talk, YouTube videos, Desha forum. If you type my name in internet, couple of things come. Feel free. Yeah, sir. Could be in this,
Right.
I think.
If you can, go down to the next slides. I'll tell you after this. After this, yeah, I think this is
This is
the
the one.
slide. Yeah,
Right.
good. So this is the one where you have, I think, one of a very, very important slide when and relevant to this group of students right now. When you talk about the criteria for joining an architecture school and selecting a school, I think it's fantastic that you've written this down. Um, and more importantly is the lesser known criteria where all students really need to look into this part of the presentation again. Go back. I would recommend that everyone goes back to this particular slide. I really like this slide, and I think this is good advice to everybody who is in short, trying to apply for a college or considering a school this year. So fantastic, Professor Satya. I think it's been a brilliant presentation. I don't think there are any more questions from students, but very, very inspirational story of yours. And we're very, very happy to have had you here today.
All right. Let me put on my video. Sorry, where is it now? Uh, I think I'm clicking it twice, making it go. Where is it? Yes, there it is. All right. And well, I can't see you people, but I know you are all there. All that one may say is that the fact that you're taking this coaching is because you're interested in architecture. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been here. Some of you may also have alternative programs, courses lined up with you. Many people do. And then some people say, hey, I wanted to join medical, I want to join aeronautics, I couldn't get anywhere, so I came to architecture. So whether one chooses architecture by choice or by compulsion, whether one chooses it by design or by destiny, once one comes into, I came to architecture by destiny, not by choice or design. But then 10 years down the line, one realized, yes, I was destined to be an architect. So you'll all get that kind of a feeling inside yourselves as long as one commits oneself to the program and the course. So that's important. If one stays there, lives there with a kind of a sense of detachment from the program, then this destiny will not take place. So all that I wish you, and I think all of you, I don't know how many number of people are taking, are with you, Dion, in your DQ labs, but I assume all of you have a destiny to become an architect. Future may be tough. Dion would have told you that architecture is not an easy course in many ways, but then no course is easy. So do come into architecture, join any school which you think would be right for you, and follow your destiny. All best
All
to you
right.
all. And Dion, thanks for letting me come into your program. Though it was again a coincidence that somebody calls me, whatever happened around. Then we
Yes,
discovered we both are from Mangalore area.
yes. Very much, very much.
Yes.
All right, sir.
One
Um,
thing is, sorry, you had asked me to. the question paper pattern and the PTQ, etc. But sorry, I don't know much about it, so you'll have to excuse me on that.
Right, no problem. So, yeah, the reason I asked you that is because you had been a part of the evaluators of the NATA papers in the past. But yeah, but this is a change that everyone is expecting. So we'll handle that with other sessions. We've already handled it with our students in the previous webinars, and we'll handle that in the next few webinars as well. Right,
Yes.
Professor Satya Prakash, pleasure to have you here, and thank you once again on behalf of
And
DQ Labs. Yeah,
welcome. We have overshot the time, and I hope you'll do your time management.
thank you. Bye. Bye.
All right. Bye.